Welcome to the Opt-in Podcast. I'm Melissa Franks, and here we unlock the secrets of what it takes to be successful inside of other people's businesses. This week, we are talking about lessons that we in the traditional business space can learn from entrepreneurs. Yes, that's exactly right. What they're doing over there from a learning and development standpoint, how they're acquiring skills, it's transferable to us in the corporate world. We just need to know how they do it and what it is. So this week, we are going to cover very specifically what we can learn from them through the lens of my personal experience, why it matters, and the resources that are available to you. So if this resonates with you and you want to go out there and get it, how can you find a different way of acquiring skills to be successful and differentiate yourself inside of the current business environment you're in? I'm really excited for us to get started today and have this conversation. And as always, if you get anything out of this episode, I want you to comment on the podcast, wherever you're listening to it, and tell me the one thing that was most helpful to you. So as we jump in, I want to start at the beginning with all of you. For those of you that are new here, or those of you that need a little bit of a refresher, I am currently a C-suite executive who is launching startup businesses for a founder. Not my ideas, they're his, and I'm bringing them to life. I'm a business builder. I build professional business people that are high performers. And when I'm not doing all of that, I'm building some pretty great humans out there in the world, also known as my children. So we're going to roll back in time a little bit to when this phase of my career started, which was September of 2018. I had been inside of a very large financial services companies for well over a decade. I had gone from individual contributor to executive, back down to director. I had bounced around across multiple companies within the organization. I knew the lay of the land and I knew how to operate within a large corporate setting. And then I was afforded the opportunity to become the chief operating officer of one of their US-based companies. I was thrilled. This was something that I hadn't even dreamed about because it was so incredibly big. To provide some perspective, I'm just a girl who grew up in a small country town, went to the local state college that was literally 15 minutes away on country roads, and stayed here to raise her family. While it's a bedroom community to San Francisco, I stopped commuting there in my early 20s. And the remainder of my career was built in local businesses and home offices. I became a global executive for the largest financial services company in the world without ever needing to leave the community that I had grown up in. This was unique. And in 2018, I was not mobile. At best, I could go to San Francisco. My youngest child was 5. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to pack up the house and move and go to different markets the way that most people build their careers as they're climbing the ladder and attaining these high-level positions in organizations. The thing that we don't share often is that there are less opportunities the higher up you go the hierarchy, which means you need to be more mobile. I had plenty of offers and opportunities to move to Europe and take on additional responsibilities there. It was a no-go. And I never entertained the idea of moving cross-country or even a few states over because it just wasn't in the cards at the time. So in 2018, when I was given the opportunity to become a C-suite executive inside of the company that I was at, working in the community that I still lived in and working from home and having very little travel, I jumped on the chance. Because let's be honest, who wouldn't, right? It's the dream job in the dream location and fitting seamlessly into my life. So what did I do? I said yes. I said yes without all of the facts. Mistake number 1. I said yes, and within a week had hopped on a plane and flew to Europe because the company required every executive to be assessed through a very formal process called a development center. You had to take assessments and tests that they scored you on in advance, and then you had a 2-day immersive process where you were with other people taking the same test and you were attempting to do your very best to solve complex business problems, to demonstrate leadership amongst a team. I mean, I am talking day one, you are in a room alone by yourself all day long. And all that happens is you are brought a packet and then told what your next assignment is and how much time you have to do it. And then somebody comes in and you have to present the organizational redesign, the business plan, how you handle HR topics. And then day two, you're put into a room with a bunch of other peers that you've never met before and given a complex business problem that you all have to solve together, and you're given about 90 minutes to do it. So you have to figure each other out. You have to figure out how to make decisions. You have to figure out how to solve the business problem, and you're doing it all in front of a live audience. That's the hoop that we had to get through before we would even be considered for an executive level job. So I hopped on a plane after I said yes to the role. So it had been offered to me. I had accepted it. Then I had this hoop I had to jump through, hopped on a plane, did the dang thing, came back and waited for the results. Meanwhile, I was already operating in the role. We hadn't made an announcement yet, but I was doing the work. I was setting the groundwork. I was restructuring the organization. I was doing all of the things as if it was mine. Remember, I had no details, but I had accepted the job because I knew how lucky I was to get the chance to be a chief operating officer in the environment that I was already in. So fast forward a few weeks and the results come back, and I had the meeting with the assessment coordinator, and she told me some amazing things. That I scored the highest she had ever seen somebody score in the assessment center. That likely I was overqualified for this level of executive, and I should really be the next level. She told me that I am one of the highest performers in the entire global organization that she has ever seen, and she has been working with people going through the development center for over 5 years. I was on cloud 9. I aced the test. I was so ready and prepared for this role, and I knew that by biding my time and doing all of this stuff that I had done for this company over a decade, I was going to be rewarded for it with the right compensation package. Oh, how I was so wrong. So wrong. So the development center cleared. My compensation package went to the Global Compensation Committee because globally they make sure everybody's paid equitably, apparently. I didn't know that then. And then the offer came back. And let's be clear, it wasn't an offer. The decision had come back. And it was disappointing, to say the least. There's probably a better way to describe it, but it was incredibly disappointing. So then I attempted to negotiate, as any person does, because let's just pause here and say, if anybody ever offers you anything, you always negotiate for more. Even if it's more than you thought you could get, you always negotiate. It's just a very good business practice. Anyway, so I start the negotiation process and I was shut down. I was told immediately, the decision has been made. If you want this position, this is how much you're going to get paid. And oh, by the way, if you decline it, you're still going to do the job anyway. So now I had a decision to make. Do I accept the position and the title and the $25,000 more a year? Or do I say no and make less and don't have the title and still have to do the work? Begrudgingly, I said yes. And also I documented very clearly my rejection of what they brought forward as an equitable compensation plan. See, I had gone out and I had talked to people. I actually had talked to real humans and said, based on the size of the company and based on the role and the size of the team, how much should an individual in this position make? And hold on to your hats, folks. It should have been 150,000 more than they offered me. It wasn't a 10 or 20,000 K difference. It was well over 6 figures difference salary-wise. So I had just been built up and I knew that I had all of these skills and I checked all the boxes for the global company. And also, they were not going to compensate me for the work that I was going to do, the capabilities that I had and the expertise that I had. This was a huge alarm bell for me. I later found out that one of the constraints, although not the only constraint, but one of the constraints is that my boss had a salary that I couldn't exceed. So she was a ceiling. And I To this day, I don't know how much of a ceiling she was, and it doesn't really matter. But the fact of the matter is that because somebody else made a decision about another individual, I was negatively impacted. And this is how businesses work. So I put my head down and I worked and I did all the things. And my boss, the CEO, had promised that this was all going to get worked out and she was going to see an increase in her level, and that would be salary increases for all, and things were going to end out well. And I had known at this point in time to never actually believe anybody that promises you anything, because I had seen enough promises happen and then the people disappear to not believe it. So I just put my head down and I said, you know what you got to do? You got to check the box for 3 years and then you can go somewhere else. But remember, I still had these constraints. My location couldn't change. This is where I am. Best case scenario, I can go to San Francisco. And I should also mention that California is not a location where financial services companies are headquartered. Not by a long shot. They're all on the East Coast. So if I wanted to stay in financial services and I wanted to continue to accelerate my career, I couldn't do it from here. It just wasn't possible. So I did what I could with what I had, and I worked my ass off, and I got the time under my belt, and I learned all of the things that one learns at that level, reporting to a board of directors. It's a different can of worms, and it was a really, really great experience. And as a part of that assessment center that I went through, they always have to provide you a little bit of feedback. And at the time, the feedback that I was given was that I could polish my delivery, that I don't have a good poker face. And so when I get frustrated or irritated, the whole room could kind of pick it up. And this feedback came from the group session where, let's just say, the group did not work the best together and it was incredibly frustrating. And so the feedback to me was, you should go find training for corporate individuals that's this theater style training. It's almost like going to acting school, the way that they describe it, where you go in and they record you with the video and you have a script and you have to act stuff out, and then you get to watch yourself back on video, and then they provide you feedback. And while that was interesting, it was not a priority to me. So I let it go. Ironically enough, 2 years later, the global pandemic hit. And we all ended up doing this behind a screen all of the time. All of us ended up staring at ourselves, and we got very familiar with our tells when we were irritated or frustrated or tired or could give two shits about what was being said. And we all got this theater style training personally, because we were forced into an environment where we were staring at our reflection amongst business settings and colleagues all day long. And see, in these 2 years, my salary had barely moved. I think I was operating in the land of the 3% raise. And for reasons that were out of my control, our bonuses weren't fully realized. So not only was I barely seeing an increase in my base compensation for all of this work and expertise that I already had coming into the role, I wasn't even seeing the full extent of my compensation package because of things, frankly, that I could not influence at the time. That topic is for another day. And I was dang tired of this situation. I was tired of, barely making ends meet. I was tired of not getting paid what I deserved. I was tired of living in this world where I couldn't get a leg up. And I knew that I was here because of the constraints that I was operating within, but I also knew that there was another way. And so this is when I decided to take things into my own hands. And I said, we're going to go figure out a business that I can enter into, which is low risk, high yield. And I looked around because I'm a business person and I assessed what my options were. I had a stint with network marketing a few years before, and that had been an epic failure. The company I was with, I don't even know. Like, I would have had to sell tens or hundreds of thousands worth of product to barely make something that was interesting to me financially. And so I really didn't want to go network marketing. So I set up a website and I thought, you know what, maybe I'll be a business coach. But we were in the middle of a global pandemic and nobody really wanted a business coach. And honestly, I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do with it. So one day I looked up and I said, you know what, I'm using these products and I really, really love them. And so I'm just going to start making commission on them. I'm just going to share this stuff with people that I know and I'm going to see where it goes. And before I knew it, I had a social selling, network marketing, direct sales, call it what you will, business that took very little of my time and was bringing in like $1,000 a month. Seriously, like just voila. I increased my income by $1,000 a month. And the great thing was I had a bunch of tax write-offs. So it actually increased my income more. And I thought, oh, well, if I can take this 1,000 and turn it into 2,000, I can stay in this job that I like, that's not paying me enough, but is operating within the constraints of my lifestyle for which I need it to be. And I can have this additional stream of income that's going to open doors. It's going to allow us to afford experiences and vacations and just give us some breathing room. And that was what I decided to do. See, the thing is it's really easy to start those businesses at the beginning because it's new and it's fresh and you haven't talked to anybody about it and people start coming in and they want to support you and it's all really great. And then all of a sudden, I got to, January of 2021 and I realized I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I was taking advice from people that were giving it and I was kind of watching what was happening, but nothing was really working. And I thought, there's got to be a playbook here somewhere. There's got to be a way, a practice process to follow that makes this cookie cutter. And so I started looking out there in the world. How do people learn how to do this? How do you sell things on social media? How do you sell things to strangers that you don't know, that you don't see in real life, that you don't have a relationship with? How do you talk about these things? I worked in retail for over 10 years. If you want me to sell you denim or shorts or a purse, I'm your girl. Let's go for it. Let's do it right now. But that's a person to person. We're in each other's space. We can have a conversation. I can read your body language. I didn't know how to sell differently. And so I started on this expedition, if you will. And I initially was like, how do these people that are making supposedly hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of dollars in network marketing actually doing it? Like, where did they get the skills? How did they acquire this? And so, of course, I found a bunch of people that had been successful and they wanted to coach you and had courses and all of these things. And it wasn't for me. And then I kept looking around and I started to see this pattern develop because as anything does, the internet or social media, as you start looking or show interest in a topic, other things start showing up. And I started to see this trend that there were online courses for everything. And there were experts in everything. I mean, everything. Branding, marketing, sales, how to create an email list, how to draft emails, how to use all the technology that big companies use when you get those constant emails about sales and those weekly emails telling you what's going on. And before I knew it, I had opened this Pandora's box of resources that I didn't even know existed. And the reason I didn't know that they existed was because I lived in the corporate world. In the corporate world, if you need to learn how to do something, it usually comes to you one of three ways. Either HR tells you that you have to do it and they hand you a training course, or there's a course library and you can choose courses from that, or there's some external training targeted specifically at the corporate world that you have the opportunity to buy into in person or online. So I had no idea that in entrepreneur land, there were a bunch of other entrepreneurs that could teach you how to do things, like how to create all of those beautiful slides that we all see on social media from people, or how to create a reel or a TikTok. I had no idea. So early in 2021, I started on this endeavor and all of a sudden the door literally kicked open. And I found that out there in the real world, that's not the corporate business world, the way that people learn how to do things is they learn from each other. Yes, they learn from each other. And so I decided that the first thing that I needed to do was to get some sales skills. And I was watching a company for a very long time, probably 9 months before I decided to hop in. And I took sales training from Guide Culture. And I thought it was going to teach me everything I needed to know to sell my products so that I could go from $1,000 to $2,000 a month, and it was going to check the box. What I didn't realize is that those skills were 100% transferable to my corporate life and my personal life. So I paid for the course. I did the homework. I showed up in the classes. I got the feedback. I did all of the things. All of them. And then about halfway through the training, what I realized is that the way I was communicating to my employees had changed. And the way that I was approaching problem solving or handling objections at work had changed. And then I realized that how I was preparing to present in large forums had changed. And then one day I realized that I was literally using the techniques with my children to get them to do things like brush their teeth and take a shower. These skills that I had gotten out and I had bought and I had acquired to sell more skincare actually became transferable skills for work and life. And here's the kicker about this entire thing. And there are some other skills that I learned too that I want to share with you. But the kicker about this training specifically was it followed pretty classical corporate structure. You had an instructor, they taught you, you even had a physical workbook. You did some pre-work. You went into a classroom setting. You demonstrated the skills, you got feedback, you tried again, and then you moved on to the next module. Very classic. This was a comfortable space for me. I knew what this looked like. I'd done this a ton of times inside the corporate world. But what they were teaching was something that is not taught in the corporate world. And so it transferred through. And now if you flash back, I went through that development center 3 years prior. And the feedback that I got was, you need to go take this theatrical public speaking course so that they can record you and they can provide you feedback, and you can basically learn how to control your facial features and your gestures and all of those things so that you're a better speaker. You have more of a poker face. Well, after the Guide Culture training, very shortly thereafter, the requests started flooding in for me to speak on global stages, for me to be a facilitator of small group sessions on topics. Anytime a presentation need came up inside of our executive community, they always pointed to me and said, Melissa's the one that needs to do it. I was the one that pitched all of the business. I was never asked to do these things before that training. After, I was recognized as an expert communicator, somebody who was compelling and could invoke emotion and get the point across and drive decision-making to conclusion. All because I went on this journey to figure out how to grow my skincare business from $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And I acquired what I thought was sales skills, and they completely transferred over to the corporate world. And I found so much value in this that when Guide Culture offered extended education to be a part of a community where you continue to get trained and coached and mentored and have resources, I said yes. So I jumped into a monthly membership, which I'm still a member of today. I pay a monthly membership fee, and then I have resources aplenty. We have a private community where we can message each other and ask for advice and feedback. We have in-person events that we can go to as a part of the community. We have ongoing training and support as we need it. These are all things accessible to me because I took the training and I stayed in the community. And as I was going through this journey, that door opened another door. And all of a sudden, what I uncovered was the way that entrepreneurs acquire skills, learn how to do things, and become successful in their businesses is by following this exact model. They identify what they need to learn. They find an expert out there that can teach them, and then they either take their course, or they join their community, or they join a mastermind, which is led by an expert, and they have anywhere from 8 to 10 people in there, and you meet on a regular cadence, and you can go in and ask questions and get coached. And in the off times, you have your peers to interact with and the coach to interact with if you need help along the way. So what entrepreneurs had done and continue to do to this day is develop resources for themselves because they need it. Entrepreneurs can't afford to have a huge corporate structure. They can't afford to have an operations department and a marketing department and an events department and a communications department and a finance department. They can't afford to do all those things. An entrepreneur often starts as a solopreneur, and they have to do all of those things themselves. And so it begs the question, well, how do they learn how to do the things that they're not an expert in? Buy all of these resources that are available out there. And as I started to think about this and I started to think about what we experience inside of the corporate world, I realized that we have the exact same problem. You may work in operations, and yet you need to know how marketing works. You may work in finance and need to know how to be a great communicator because often you're needing to negotiate people to reduce their budgets. See, when we're in a business function, often we need to have an understanding of or some overlapping skills with other functions in the company so that we can do our best work. And yet the way that corporate structures are set up today, business structures are set up today, is that you learn how to be an expert in your lane and nothing else. There isn't a training out there for an operations individual that wants to learn how branding operates or how to define a marketing plan. It doesn't exist because either you need to go learn how to be somebody that works in marketing or be a branding expert, or you need to be an operations expert. There isn't this cross-functional overlap where you get to learn these skills and figure out how to create a unique offering of skills that you yourself have. And as I went through this journey, it started with guide culture and the sales skills, which I now really see as communication and leadership skills. And then it rolled into me finding my human design coach that really helped me figure out that I wasn't crazy and that really this is how I'm designed and here are my strengths and weaknesses and how to play into them and the people I need to surround myself with to complement where I'm not as strong. And then my current coach came into my world because I had seen her many moons ago and wasn't quite ready for the kind of support that she had. But now with me in the startup, she's helping me figure out and prioritize all of these new bits and pieces that I'm having to pull together as I build a business for somebody else. So I take somebody else's idea and build it and bring it into fruition. See, once I tapped into that entrepreneurial market where there were all of these resources, I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I realized that there was this depth of expertise that had completely transferable knowledge that I could learn from and that it could help up-level and make my role more sophisticated. I'm now a better commodity because I'm taking what I'm learning in the entrepreneurial space and I'm applying it in the corporate space. An example of this is very, very simple and recent. One of the things that we've had to do with the startup is we've had to define the brand. It's a pretty normal thing, right? And the associated marketing around that. And so, went out and did an RFP and found a marketing company, and they had an impossible task. We had a really short timeline, we had a really small budget, and a really big ask. It's a really bad combination. And they put their heads down and they got to work. And recently we were talking because we've met all the deadlines and we've achieved what we want, and they have knocked it out of the park. It is so much better than anything I could have ever possibly imagined. They dreamed bigger for me than I was already dreaming, and it's just their work is phenomenal. And one of the things that we were discussing, because they were providing feedback, is that I entered the relationship with them understanding what the priorities were and how these components worked in the bigger picture. And so when it got to the place where I needed to be able to articulate to them who we are, what we do, why it's important, and then I needed to make decisions, I was doing it from an informed place because I understand what marketing and branding is. I understand its importance. I understand how it works because I learned over in the entrepreneurial space. As a very first step in that skincare business, when I realized I didn't know what I was doing, before I even took the sales training, I said, how the heck am I supposed to market this stuff? What's my brand? What does that even mean? Oh, I need colors, and how many colors, and why is that important? And I literally took a whole immersive course across a variety of resources learning about marketing and branding. And so when I got to this place with a startup company where this is either going to make or break this thing, it's so important. I came from an informed position. I came into the room and I already knew what we were trying to achieve. And so we were able to move fast and make decisions and end up with a working product that is beyond our wildest dreams. And that happened not because I'm just some savant and amazing person. It happened because in a different lane, in a different season, for a different reason, I acquired the necessary expertise to serve me in this season where it counts and I need it the most. By getting creative, learning the skills, and then applying them in a different environment, we hit payday. And as I started to see these patterns repeat themselves over and over time, the sales skills, totally transferable, even though I wasn't selling anything, I was really, right? You may not be selling a product, but you may be selling an idea or your point of view, or driving towards a decision, or trying to rally everybody behind a vision or a mission or an idea. Those sales skills translated seamlessly. And then these marketing and branding skills that I got very specific to, like, how do I represent myself on Instagram and what does this look like? They translated into building a humongous branding message for a brand new company that's about as corporate as one can get, to be honest. And there were 1,000 other examples of how these skills that I learned because I was trying to generate more than $1,000 a month in my skincare business into my professional career. And so the message here is that if we think inside of the corporate setting that they've given us all of the training, that we have everything that we need to be successful, I'm telling you, there's a better way. I'm telling you right now that the way that you differentiate yourself and get known and recognized and get opportunities is by doing it differently. See, we now fast forward to a little less than a year ago, and the opportunity to join the startup came to me, and I would have bypassed it normally. And I didn't because I now had enough confidence to say, I have this unique skill set. I understand how big business works. I understand how entrepreneurship works. And I believe that I can take the skills that I've acquired along the way from the traditional and the non-traditional and combine them together and be exactly what this company needs, exactly what this idea needs at this point in time. And I'm proving it every single day. And the kicker is that when I told you that in order to make more money, to get what I was worth, to have the job that I dreamed of, I was going to have to move. Friends, there hasn't been a move. I'm still in that sleepy farm town. It's not so sleepy anymore. It's grown up and gotten a little bit big, thanks pandemic. But I'm still in that sleepy farm town. My local college that I went to is still 15 minutes away on a country road. I still hear chickens and can see cows whenever I want. I haven't gone anywhere. The skills that I acquired through traditional and non-traditional means have allowed me to kick open doors that give me opportunity that didn't exist in 2018. So why does this matter, Melissa? You've been talking about this for 30 minutes. Why does this matter? Why are you so fired up about this? It's because I firmly believe that employees inside of other people's businesses have been limited. Their possibilities are put into a box because they're told that this is a script that you have to follow. This is where you acquire skills from. This is what you need to know to move up the rung. And I think that it's just bullshit. I, through my own personal experience, have realized that if you can learn the things that entrepreneurs know, if you can learn in a way that they have demonstrated works, you acquire skill faster and you grow those skills stronger over time. Here is what I mean. Very, very specifically, and I'm going to use guide culture as an example because I think it's important. I learned the hard skills. I took the course. I practiced, I got feedback, I did all the things. And then I said yes to join their community. And I honestly didn't know what that was. I understood training to be, I buy a course, you teach me how to do the thing, I go off into the sunset. I also recently saw a statistic that says that you lose half of what you learned a couple of hours after you've learned it. And within a few days, you lost 90% of it. So this is why the guide culture approach works so much, because you learned it, you practiced it, you built upon it, and then you kept practicing and learning it. And their secret sauce was that this community that they have, you're continuously practicing it. So you can't forget the 90% because you're literally living the material and the training and practicing until it becomes a part of your DNA. And so this model works so well, and it does not exist in the corporate setting. And when I took a breath and looked up earlier this year, I said, why not? Frankly, why not? Why can't we do this? And so Intentional Career Collective, which launched in June, is built based on this model. You are provided training that you have access to forever. And then you have the opportunity to come into the community and be coached. And we'll touch on the topics multiple times, so it's not a once and forget. For example, with goal setting, we're going to hit on it every single goal setting season. And you have the opportunity to come in, which is what's happening right now, literally as we speak, to bring your major goals in and let's talk them through. What's working? What's not? Where are you getting stuck? Where is your manager pushing back? How does all of it work? We are going to be running through clinics around how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. And that's all about getting coached live and in action, doing a little role play and a little bit of action. What I've learned from this entrepreneurial world is that when you do training plus community plus live coaching plus practicing the skills, rinse and repeat, the skills stay with you and you can build upon them. And what I've also learned is that it's incredibly important for you to learn things that you think you don't need. If I had avoided topics of marketing and branding, when I got to the point of this role where I had to build a marketing and branding plan and identity, I would have been stopped by fear. I was an English major in college. I didn't know what marketing means. I don't know what PR means. If I hadn't spent all of that time learning about those things and putting it into practice and staying inside of organizations and communities that provide me feedback and help me grow and develop and do all those things, when I got to that point in my career professionally in the corporate world, I would have been dead in the water. So Intentional Career Collective has been built on that premise that what's working for entrepreneurs can work for those inside of the corporate setting, can work for those in the business world. Let's learn the hard skills. Let's learn the things that you could go out and get courses for. Let's learn the things that nobody's teaching you how to do right now. Like how to ask for a raise, how to get a promotion, how to literally handle objections and pitch an idea, how to create a project plan that's going to ensure that you deliver. Let's teach those hard skills. And then together, let's work through it live while you're doing it. As you're putting your pitch together, let's talk it through. Where are you struggling? Where are you getting stuck? How did it land? What do you want to adjust? That's what Intentional Career Collective is all about. It's a community of like-minded individuals that's learning the same skills, practicing the same skills, honing the same skills, and deploying them out into the real world. It's also a group of people that want to lift each other up. And so as you're looking for your next opportunity, as you're looking for your next babysitter in the town that you live in, as you're looking for support, we're here for that too. Because what I found most in the entrepreneurial space is that they're all very lonely because they're a single person in a single business that they're trying to launch. And so they've developed these cross-functional communities so that they have each other to lean on and ask for support. So that when a question arises and they don't know how to respond to it or answer it, there's a safe place for them to go with experts that lead the containers and or peers that can say, hey, been there, done that. I understand how that works. Intentional Career Collective is a combination of the best of the both worlds. We take the approach that entrepreneurs use that have proven to be successful in helping them acquire, maintain, and build businesses and skill sets. And we bring in the corporate experts that are going to teach you what you need to know so that you can be a well-rounded employee, so that you can drive your professional career in the direction that you want, so that you can figure out how to have balance so you can do all of those things. I'm incredibly passionate about skill acquisition and ongoing learning and development. What I'm frustrated with is that the corporate environment has not understood that the traditional way that they're teaching us, the traditional way that they're offering courses, and the traditional way that they're budgeting expense for people to grow and develop themselves is antiquated and it isn't working. Just a little bit of my story that I've shared with you today shows that if you do it differently, the sky is the limit. So I am inviting all of you right now that are listening to this to join us inside of the Intentional Career Collective. I'm inviting all of you right now to come in, see what it's about. Ask for the training that you need. We have a depth of experts ready and lined up to talk to you about just about anything. All we need to have is you here and eager to learn. I am so grateful that all of you listen to this podcast and are here for me to share my experiences with. As I said, today's episode was really about how we, inside of corporate settings and businesses, can learn from entrepreneurs. This is just one of the many examples of something that they are doing differently, and it's totally applicable to what we could experience. So if you found value in this, I really want you to, as I asked for at the top of the show, to comment wherever you are listening to this and tell me specifically what sort of training that you're looking for that you can't find. It'll really help shape the agenda of the Intentional Career Collective's learning journey, and it will ensure that when you come in and join us, that you're getting the learning opportunities that you're looking for. Thank you so much for your time today. And I just want you to know that you are wise, you are capable, and you are strong. And I believe in you. Have a wonderful day, friends.